Welcome to this episode of Preaching the Word, a video series on preaching sponsored by the Dunk Tank and the Berman Ministry Center. My name is Dr. Stephen Reasor, and I'm a preacher and author, and I teach preaching at Berman University in Lacombe, Alberta. In this episode, we look at the second of three textual sermon structures. This is the verse-by-verse sermon form. I love the logic behind this type of sermon structure. We are allowing the structure of the biblical passage to shape our sermon. Like the text-to-application method we discussed in the last video, this focuses on both an exposition of the text and then an application to the lives of the hearers. In this case, though, the preacher exposits one verse or a group of verses at a time, pausing to apply it to the congregation before moving on to the next text. It looks like this: reading and expositing the text, then the application of the text, reading of the next text, and then the application of that text, and so on from the beginning of the pericope all the way to the end. This simple way of preaching is similar to Jewish midrash. It places the text of Scripture front and center and never strays too far from the biblical author's topic. Certainly the preacher will still treat the pericope as a single unit and trace a theme or a central idea through each of the moves. For this type of sermon, I could preach on Luke 17, 5-10. Although there are 6 verses in this pericope, I would logically treat them in 4 groups. This means I will have 8 moves. 4 text and exposition moves and 4 application moves. The move statements would go like this. Text 1, Lord, increase our faith. Application 1, we should want more faith. Text number 2, faith like a mustard seed works miracles. Application number 2, like the disciples, we lack faith. Text number 3, serving the servant. Application 3, if we expect God to do our bidding because of our faith, then we don't understand faith. And text 4, unworthy servants. The application of that would be that faith understands that we are servants whose primary role is to obey. Now, it is important to remember that each text move will need to provide some exposition of the text, and you may want to consider the theological implications of the text in this move as well. The application moves, then, can be more practical. Since I have 8 main moves in this sermon, each one will need to be concise so that the sermon moves at a good pace through the pericope. That's it. Pretty simple and easy. Your assignment for this sermon form is to consider how you might shape a sermon that you're working on to fit the verse-by-verse form. Outline the moves of your sermon just like I have done. When you finish your assignment, join me for the next episode of Preaching the Word, where we will move to the last and most complex textual structure, the various potential forms of narrative discourse.